First, we begin with the outline of the skull. Lightly sketch a rough circle to represent the basic shape of the skull. Then, draw the position of the chin and cheekbones, keeping the lines gentle, as further adjustments will be made later. We use light, delicate lines to define the basic structure of the skull, ensuring that the positioning and proportions of each part are accurate. Once the outline is complete, we begin refining the facial details of the skull. Pay special attention to the eye sockets, where the depth can be expressed with intersecting short diagonal lines to create layers of shadow. The nasal cavity requires denser short lines along the curve of the nasal bones to depict shadows. To enhance the skeletal texture, we add cracks around the facial outline, using curved fine lines to add depth. Remember to adjust the shadows based on the light source. When the light comes from the upper left, the left side of the skull will be brighter, while the right side will have deeper shadows. Next, we move on to drawing the apple. The shape of the apple is relatively simple, but to capture its roundness, we need to use fine line techniques. First, lightly sketch the basic outline of the apple, ensuring symmetry. Then, use parallel lines to depict the shadows on the surface of the apple. The density of the lines should gradually increase as they move farther from the light source. Lines should be more spaced out, where the light hits and closer together in the shadowed areas, to emphasize the apple's gloss, especially in the highlight area at the top. We use sparse lines to suggest the reflection on its surface. The lines here should be light, avoiding too much shadow that would dull the brightness of the apple. Conversely, the bottom of the apple and around the stem will have heavier shadows, so we use denser, shorter lines to deepen those dark areas. The surface of the apple's skin has tiny textures and irregular details, which can be depicted with short, irregular lines. On one side of the apple, we use some crisscrossing or dotted lines to mimic the small bumps on the skin. These finer lines should transition gradually, avoiding harsh boundaries to ensure a natural flow, creating a three-dimensional and realistic texture. After completing the basic sketches of the skull and apple, we begin making detailed adjustments. The right side of the skull is darker, so we use tighter crisscrossing lines to deepen the shadows. The right side of the apple requires more detailed line transitions to enhance the contrast between light and dark. A slight amount of shadow between the skull and the apple can help create a smoother transition between the two. Finally, we refine the details of each element to complete the overall drawing. Use an eraser to gently lift the highlights from the skull, such as the cheekbones and forehead, to give them a glossy effect. Similarly, the highlight areas of the apple can be erased lightly to make them appear brighter. Strengthen the shadows at the bottom of the apple to make it appear more three-dimensional, as if it is about to leap off the paper through the variation in line work. The hardness of the skull contrasts with the softness of the apple, creating a striking juxtaposition in the same composition. The density and direction of the lines effectively enhance the three-dimensionality and light shadow effects. In the end, the entire drawing looks more vivid and layered,